So I'm going to introduce Christopher Levenson. He is the first recipient of the Eric Gregory Award and the author of 12 previous books of poetry. He taught English and creative writing until 1999 at Carleton University, Ottawa, where he co-founded and edited Arc magazine. Having worked at various times in Holland, Germany, Russia, and India, he now lives in Vancouver, BC.
Right, I'm going to start off with a poem called Lion. Heraldry got it all wrong. They are not rampant and noble. Most of the time, they are just layabouts, sunning on rocks, complacent and chauvinist. But it shows what a good coiffure and a deep voice can do for your self-esteem. That, plus a bit of land to spray and call your own and defend as long as you can, till someone with a louder voice, younger body, stronger teeth, drives you away into the veldt alone. Poems about animals and nature of various sorts. Second poem I'm going to read is called Squirrel. High wire Baryshnikov, you pirouette between trees, dancing on air, creating in our backyard new alphabets of space, all flourish and curlicue, calligraphies of fur. The third one was based on an actual incident. It's called Perfect Specimen, he thought, the wildlife biologist, stuffing surprise, a snowy owl into the lab freezer overnight for safekeeping, along with some smaller rodents and fish. When he returned next day, the owl stared at him wide-eyed, having feasted long and well on the more authentic dead. Then a number of these poems, some of them are from previous volumes, but they tend not to get noticed, the smaller poems, so that's why I really wanted to collect them all. None of these poems are more than 10 lines long, and the shortest is just 2 lines. The next poem is called On the Moors, and this is a childhood, based on a childhood memory. When I was evacuated to northern England during the Second World War, I'm giving my age away there if you didn't know about it already. On the moors, a giggle of water, elusive between peat moss, heather, rock face, a brook, and in me a heightened awareness of the air at large, the wind's brightness, and sheep randomly grazing on barbed wire, a straggle of wool, and a few feet beyond a curlew in hiding. And then another memory of that period. As a child, I simply saw this as an interesting phenomenon, and I've puzzled subsequently about what it may mean in a more an extended sense. The sea spring. Even the salt of the sea can be overcome. As a wartime child in Morecambe Bay, I had seen the salt flats at Silverdale, stinging, desolate creeks, tough islands of marsh grass, thrift, and rotting bones, overwhelmed twice a day in the relentless battleship tones of the estuary tide. 100 yards out from the pebble shore it was. She wanders the early beach, scours for sand dollars. No luck. Seagulls have beaten her to it. Intent on their livelihood, they smash them with expert bills, discarding the shells of breakfast, the wreckage of mussel and crab. Empty-handed, disconsolate, Una, the scavenger, is left with small change. Then one of my favorites, because it's called Ecology, but it's really about love. Unlike oil, natural gas, or the Amazon forest, love is a renewable resource. Drill deep enough and you'll find it still welling up from the bed of the ocean or flaring across prairie landscapes. Sweet, light, crude, whatever. And finally, in what was to have been the first section, call waiting. The nice thing about very short poems is that I can actually remember some of them, and I tend to think that memorability is still an important asset in poetry. So call waiting, and of course this refers to the what you get when you try to phone somebody and you can't get through, and the voice tells you your call is important to us. From the further shore, I hear it through the mist, and I want to say to the loon, your call is important to us. And then the second part, I'm moving straight on, are more poems about people and society, and in the broadest sense, politics. So this first one here is called Skyscraper. Cloud transients, a veering gull, contact prints of details that otherwise I would have forgotten to see. A lot of the time we forget to notice things, and it's handy to have the sort of mirrors of the glass walls of skyscrapers to bring them to our attention. This next one is called Return, and it is about Palestine and the Nakba. In the refugee camp after the Nakba, his mother and father were both constantly knitting fishing nets. When he asked them why, they told him, the day you return to Tiberias, our old village, this way you'll have everything ready to start afresh. His parents, now buried in all but memory, assured him the deeds to their house by the shore were valid still and merely await his return. The next one is sort of social in another sense. It's something that I think probably a lot of people have experienced. It's called At the Party, and this is just a three-liner. Like icebergs, we stand around, brilliant, but mostly submerged. No one approaches. Then nutrition. This I dedicated to a second-hand bookseller in Ottawa when I was living there. One of my colleagues had died and either bequeathed or sold before his death to this bookseller a number of his scholarly works. So, Nutrition for David Dawkin. After victory, Aztec warriors would devour the hearts of brave, slain enemies to partake of their courage. So I, like a cannibal, in a second second-hand bookstore, grab at my late colleague's relics, trepan the skulls, bend back the spines, scoop up a dozen books, hope to acquire some part of the brain, a hint of the intellect they went to feed. Moving on to something with newsreel. This particular instance was from Liberia, but it can be duplicated many, many times. Newsreel. In the news clip from Liberia, the naked running boy, when shot, did not get up, but lay in the dust quite still. This was no stunt. In the film of his life, he was not simply an extra. He played the title role. I've traveled around a fair bit, and one of the places that I've spent a little time in, not nearly enough, is Mexico City. In the Zona Rosa, the dark tinted glass of the latest office high-rise reflects back upon crowded pavements. Beside the airport freeway, monstrous billboards compete with the blue of jacarandas that floats over the neighborhood corner stores, auto workshops, like a pale dream of wealth and liberty. Another of my favorite places, in fact, probably, I was going to say almost my favorite big city. I would feel disloyal to London, where I grew up, if I said that, but certainly it comes a very close second, is Amsterdam. And since I've translated quite a lot of Dutch poetry and other things from Dutch, and speak the language, I feel very much at home there. And the last time I went there, 5 years ago now, I had this experience, chameleon. Twice in the center of Amsterdam, strangers have stopped me to ask for directions. Maybe after more than 50 years, I am finally blending in here, and my cane makes me look like a heritage site or a building that must be torn down for the sake of the usual progress. Translated, I am more than content to pass for one of the locals. And my final poem today is called One Fine Day, Un Bel Dì. If you know your Puccini and you know Madame Butterfly, the day that and at a performance program, and realized for the first time that a lot of the opera was set in Nagasaki. So the first line is just this from the program. Nagasaki, the sea, the harbor. How could Puccini have known that the Pinkerton man, dressed in black, would return to secure his treasure? Even with her telescope, Butterfly could not foresee how decades later her little boy would come home with that ultimate American gift of light. Thank you.